Hello guys, it's James here and welcome here to today's video. Today we are going to be doing a monthly review for the final month of the Manchester United season. We've done all the months from August now to the final one, which is May, and Manchester United finished the season off in quite a disappointing, frustrating fashion. Okay, yes, we got second place, which is for me quite good and quite a good achievement for this season. Okay, yes, we got to a cup final, but for me overall it was a disappointing month for Manchester United in terms of, realistically the results, and in terms of what could have been a good outcome come out not so good of an outcome. The month started off against a game against Brighton. We've never been to the Amex before, just like we've never been to Huddersfield. This season, three newly promoted teams, Huddersfield, Newcastle and Brighton, went away to all three, got beaten all three. For me, that's 9 points which Manchester United should be picking up, which we've not picked up, and those are for me 9 points which could really, okay, yeah, weren't going to push us on for the title this season, but on another season should be pushing us on for the title, if we're ever going to win the title. For me, it just wasn't good enough for Manchester United. That game against Brighton, it was so poor. No disrespect to Brighton, they played well, but we should be beating teams like Brighton. Martial had an off day, Rashford had an off day, Lingard started on the bench. Players like Darmian, Blind, Fellaini, it's so poor, and we got beat that day. The only good thing to come out of that weekend when we lost to Brighton was the fact that Tottenham had also lost to West Brom and Liverpool had already played that extra game. So United didn't actually lose any ground on the teams trying to get that second place off United. But it was just disappointing to have such a bad performance and actually lose, and to end up losing another 3 points off Manchester City and make that gap even bigger. But what we wanted was a reaction. That game against West Ham for me was a perfect chance to get a good reaction, and we didn't get it. It was a proper end of season game. That Brighton game felt for me like an end of season game. This felt like even more. It was a bit like last season. Do you remember when we finished sixth and we had the Europa League, and those final few games in the league were just absolutely irrelevant because they weren't going to change anything, and it was all just basically on that Europa League, and we played our sort of B string. This time we played our sort of a proper team, but you could tell they weren't up for it. It was a really shit game. West Ham had already stayed up. United were already going to pretty much finish second, and basically all United needed to do in that game was draw, and they would have guaranteed second. Okay, yes, we got the job done. Okay, yes, we drew and we got second, but that for me tells you everything. We only had to draw. Why couldn't we have gone out the game, try and won it 3-4-0? You know what I mean? Rather than just go there, play shitty football, and basically just play boring football and come away with a 0-0. Because that is exactly what happened. I feel sorry for the United fans who went down to the London Stadium that night, because the actual football was absolutely atrocious that night. It was such a poor game. It was like a friendly. It was like a testimonial. It was so poor. And yeah, when that final whistle went, it was like, what have we just watched? It was such a poor game of football. It had 0-0 written all over it, and that was really hard to watch and really frustrating to watch as well, as a Manchester United fan, because as I said, we pretty much were going to get second whether we won that game, drew that game, lost that game. And so as I said, to play like that after the result we had at Brighton was really frustrating. It was like two really bold performances, two really bad results. And for me, that game was all about Michael Carrick. Michael Carrick's won a lot here at Man United. He's won the league, he's won the Champions League, he's won the League Cup, he's won the FA Cup, he's won the Europa League, he's won the Community Shield, he's won everything at Manchester United. He's been a great servant to the club, he's captained the side a few times, he's been a great leader in the side. And although he had his testimonial last summer, obviously he's played a few games since then, he's going into managerial for Manchester United, but it was really nice to give him the send-off. Obviously, this game was branded Michael Carrick's last game, although, yeah, he could have played against Chelsea. We knew he wasn't going to play, and it was basically Michael Carrick's final Man United game and obviously final home game. He got a nice little standing ovation at the end, and obviously that's why we did the speech at the end. But for me, it was all about Michael Carrick, and that says enough. The fact that it was his last game, the fact that it was all about Michael Carrick says how much it meant about the game. Nothing important. Watford had already stayed up. United had already guaranteed second. Again, if United won, drew or lost, United were going to finish second. It wasn't really that big of a game for Manchester United. It was all eyes again on that Chelsea game. It was again another irrelevant, meaningless Premier League game. It was just basically finishing the season on a high, which, actually when you look back on it now after what happened in the FA Cup final, it's quite nice that we won that game, because otherwise we would have ended the season on the back of 4 games without a win and 4 bad performances. So it was quite nice we won that game, but again, it weren't a great performance. It wasn't vintage United. It wasn't really comfortable. It was a 1-0 win, scrappy goal, and it was actually a sort of a sweaty goal if you play FIFA from Marcus Rashford. But we got the job done. We got the win, which was nice, but overall it didn't affect our league position. And obviously it meant we went into the FA Cup final, and obviously that was the good thing. It meant we went into the FA Cup final with a bit of confidence. We went into the FA Cup final with a bit of momentum, which was good after the first few results, but it was also good because Chelsea, who finished 5th this season, had also been beaten 3-0 by Newcastle, and so, you know, you thought, well, their momentum, their confidence isn't. Moving on to the FA Cup final, and it just wasn't good enough. You know, for me, Manchester United, we're favourites. You know, we went into the game, Chelsea finishing 5th, United finishing 2nd, Chelsea being beaten 3-0 like Newcastle the week before, but also being beat 4-1 by Watford, 3-0 by Bournemouth, and you just thought, you know, United are favourites for this game. Everyone thought United were going to win. Well, I say everyone, but I thought United were the favourites. I think we were going in expecting United to win, and as I said, that first half performance was awful. I was a little bit weird with the team, if I'm being honest with you. Eric Bailly starting as a centre-back. For me, why was it Eric Bailly not starting as a centre-back was one thing. You know, another thing is, for me, I think you should have gambled and played Lukaku. I don't understand it. You know, he played Jones and Smalling. Jones weren't good enough. He let him in for Hazard. Okay, yeah, to be fair with the tackle, you know, I think he had no option to bring him down. But for me, it wasn't you know, a great tackle. We gave away a penalty, and in the end, we've paid the penalty for that. You know, excuse the pun, but it's true. We ended up paying the penalty for that decision, and you know, it wasn't really good enough for Manchester United. Second half was better. First half was atrocious for a cup final, and for, you know, for the final game of the season, for a cup final, something the fans really, you know, passionately want to win, something the fans have paid quite a lot of money for. To see that first half performance, it was dreadful. Second half, much better. Manchester United were much better in the second half. You know, they really were. Manchester United were much better in the second half. We had a few more chances. I think we actually, in the end, turned out to be the better team in the second half, dominated the game, had the better chances, but we couldn't take them. And at the end of the day, Chelsea defended well. Chelsea won the cup, and it was really quite frustrating that in the end, you know, letting Hazard run through like that, a poor tackle and a penalty ended up costing United the FA Cup. Really quite frustrating in terms of that result. And obviously it's disappointing because I think second in the FA Cup would have been a good season for Manchester United. You know, and like for some people, second in the league in the FA Cup wouldn't have been a good season. For me, I think it would have been. You know, for me to rise from 6th place to second place in the league, for me shows progression. And for me, going from winning 2 competitions to 1 competition, okay, yeah, you've not won so many competitions, but you think about it, if you win the FA Cup season in, season out, you win the League Cup season in, season out, it gets boring. You want to win the Premier League and the Champions League. Those are the main 2. Okay, yes, it's nice to win the FA Cup, it's nice to win the League Cup every now and then, but you don't want to win that same competition every year, because those ones aren't as good as the Premier League and the Champions League. And so my point is, I would rather finish higher in the league, finish second in the Premier League and win 1 cup, than finish 6th in the Premier League and win 2 cups. Last season, that was great. This season, for me, that wouldn't have been so great. And for me, second and 1 cup this season would have been great, whereas next season that won't be so great. Either way, in the end, we've not won the FA Cup. We've been beaten by Chelsea, poor performance. Let's not talk too much about that. And we ended up finishing only second in the league. I'm not going to talk about too much as a season as a whole, because I'm going to do a season review for 2017-2018 in another video, and this is just basically May. I'll talk a bit more about how I think the season in a whole. As I said, second and the FA Cup would have been great. Just second, not so great. It's still an improvement from 6th, but overall, would you have rather have won 2 trophies? At the end of the day, players want to win trophies, fans want to win trophies. I don't know, but we'll talk about that in a different video. Either way, for Manchester United in May, it wasn't good enough. 4 games, just 1 win, 1 draw, 2 defeats, and ultimately 4 bad performances. We were poor against Brighton, but got beat, poor against West Ham and had a poor draw, poor against Watford and only scraped to win, and also got beat in the FA Cup final. So overall, not really a good month, because second was pretty much guaranteed before the month, and the FA Cup was up for grabs. We didn't do it, unfortunately. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. See you later.